Back in 1963, the publication which did more than any other to cover the Profumo affair was a young magazine called Private Eye. And the Eye has been following the Epstein case for many years as well, and its editor, Ian Hislop, is with me now in the studio. Ian, great to have you here, and I've got a copy of your new Private Eye. We'll read some of the jokes out in a moment. But, first of all, sort of sense of history. Do you think this really is at the same level as the Profumo scandal?
Well, I think there are two things. One is Profumo was a more junior minister than Peter Mandelson in the heart of New Labour, and if it was the end of that Tory establishment regime, this has got to be really embarrassing for the whole New Labour project. I mean, Mandelson is going to be arrested, isn't he? It's fairly clear that the full criminal investigation is going to be very serious for him.
Well, all we know, I suppose, this evening is that the police are carrying out an investigation.
Yes.
They've confirmed that.
Yes. But it is jaw-dropping. And I think because this story, Profumo broke and exploded, this one's been going for a very long time. And everyone involved pretends they had absolutely no idea. Keir Starmer, all his advisors, all these businessmen, everyone's saying, we had no idea that Epstein was in some way a paedophile. Whereas, in fact, 2008 is the date of the case, and we ran a cover about this in 2011.
I was going to ask you, when was the sort of cloud the size of a man's hand suddenly appearing, and you thought this Epstein guy is a big story?
It was over the then Duchess of York, now not Duchess anymore,
Fergie.
And Fergie. And it was a story that she'd accepted £15,000 from Jeffrey Epstein. He was then convicted paedophile and financier, who everyone was pretending was absolutely fine. And we ran a cover with Sarah and her two daughters, and a voice saying, I'll give you £15,000. And she was saying, is that for Beatrice or both of them? Now, at the time, this was considered harsh and offensive.
Yeah.
But it was trying to make the point that everyone was pretending they didn't know. This was on the front of a newsstand. And then in the Epstein file dump yesterday, there is reference to Private Eye, an absolute rag of a publication, says Epstein's lawyer. Great.
So you're happy about that?
I'm fine with the tribute.
And let's talk a little bit about Peter Mandelson
Yes.
himself, because he has been, I'm not sure how many times he's been on the cover of Private Eye, but I would hazard a guess it's a few.
Yes, but never in his underpants.
Never in his underpants.
This is going to be a first this week.
He's in his underpants on your front page, and the caption says, I've let myself down, my party down, and my trousers down. I'm afraid that is the picture. You don't really want to see it too closely.
No, and I was pleased to see that Starmer himself used the phrase, he's let the country down. We didn't know he was going to do our joke, but, fair enough.
Let me ask you about Mandelson,
Yes.
because there have been so many Mandelson stories over the years. Are you surprised that after all of that, Keir Starmer brought him back and made him ambassador to Washington?
Yeah, I was absolutely amazed. It seemed to me an incredible lack of judgment and also lack of political nous. I mean, he'd already blown up twice. This is third time lucky for the public. And let's hope, he is Prince of Darkness, but let's hope the stake is firmly in the heart this time. Because there is no justification, knowing what he knew, for appointing him to be ambassador. And also, he does seem to have had a very important advisory role in the whole Starmer project. And that's embarrassing. You
said it goes to the heart of New Labour because, of course, Neil Kinnock brings us in, first of all, as communications director. And back in the days when he had longer hair and a moustache and all of that. The Red Rose Man, the current king, called him then. And then he was very important to Tony Blair, not just as a PR guy, but he was the third man, as he put it himself, alongside Gordon Brown and Tony Blair in creating the project.
In his modest autobiography, he referred to himself as the third most important person. And I think he meant the most important as the mediator between these two other people, Blair, Brown, who also had something to do with it. He's phenomenally arrogant. And by the end of that particular set of disasters, he was saying, I'm very relaxed about the filthy rich. And then Epstein is both filthy and rich. It couldn't be more obvious what he was doing.
You are, I suppose, our kind of national analyst of corruption. You're the guy who studies corruption. How important do you think the very, very rich part of this is. In other words, it's not necessarily about sex. It's about the kind of mesmeric, hypnotic power of people who are inordinately rich.
Yes, and people like Mandelson just fall in love with it. They fall in love with the money, and the amounts that he was offered by Epstein they're not huge. Part of you thinks, you did this for this little money? But it's disgraceful. I mean, why couldn't he pay for his husband's osteopathy course? 10 grand. Why can't you pay for that yourself? There comes a point where they just believe they're entitled to all of this money. And then, full on, they believe they're entitled to help out their friends. I have to say, it is gobsmacking, the passing on of the memo to a financier.
And we know that he denies a lot of this, but can I put it to
Yes, he's got selective amnesia, hasn't he?
He's got very severe selective
remember any of the bits where he might have behaved very, very badly.
Can I just put it to you that maybe what he's doing when he's leaking stuff from the cabinet is nothing more than showing off?
That's possible, but if you're showing off by saying, oh, there's a massive asset sale, and you're sending documents about which particular assets might be on sale to a man who boasts about being a financier, it might be something much more serious. I don't want to get into any trouble here in terms of contempt, but I mean the evidence of those emails, and I presume what Gordon Brown is going to testify, is pretty serious.
He's an extraordinary character in all sorts of ways. He's kind of mesmeric and hypnotic. I don't know if you ever came to any of the old private eye lunches or if you debated stuff with him, but he is very, very gossipy and in many ways an intriguing character. Do you think he's learned anything from this?
No, I mean, he's clearly learnt nothing at all. I mean, his reactions were, he tried to bluff it out. He tried to say, it was a long time ago and I deeply regret it. He offered absolutely no sympathy with the victims until he was told he hadn't offered any, and then he made another statement. He has at every point tried to front this out, and the I don't remember anything is the latest thing, and he thinks it will work. He's done this before.
I know he has done it. I should say that we wanted Peter Mandelson to be sitting there in that chair beside you to explain himself, but for whatever reason he was unable to join us, as they say.
And this isn't just revenge on my part. I mean, in one of the Epstein emails that was released, Peter Mandelson suggests to Epstein that he needs a good libel lawyer because of the allegations that have come up and that we were making. And in this issue, we say, over a picture of him in his underpants, he's going to need some briefs, some decent briefs.
Some decent briefs. You say, oh no, he's into M&S, you say, in this front page.
He's in serious trouble.
He's in very serious trouble. There's one other aspect of this that struck me today, Ian, which is that on this side of the Atlantic, reputations are crashing down. There's Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, never mind Peter Mandelson, never mind Keir Starmer's naivety in appointing him, all of that. You look across the Atlantic, and there seems to be absolutely very few ripples from any of this. You know, the Clintons are going, I think, to testify to Congress, but Trump seems to have got away with his close connection with Epstein, which seems to me to have been closer, actually, than Peter Mandelson's connection with Epstein.
Yes, but I do think that it says at least there is still some shame this side of the pond, and that we have taken this seriously. Because there is nothing particularly conclusive about Trump, which is what everybody wanted, the story there is not as big as it is here. But we're laying full into the businessman on this side of the Atlantic who, Richard Branson's behaviour and his suggestions to the disgraced paedophile about how he could restore his reputation, they do not read well. And we are going for this. On the other side of the Atlantic, it's all very muted.
You are a reporter, not a predictor. But let me ask you to predict a little bit about tomorrow when the Conservatives are going to be in the House of Commons pursuing this. And the line that they are going for very strongly is that Keir Starmer was more than naive in appointing him in the first place. And you hear this from Labour MPs as well. And that really something fundamental has gone wrong at the heart of Number 10, which allowed this to develop in this way. What do you think?
Well, I think the Tories are going to relish after the PPE scandals, which were fairly corrupt, let's be honest. So they are going to relish the chance to call someone else corrupt and to say at the heart of government there is a deep malaise. I mean, they're not wrong, but quite whether this is the most important political moment in the history of political moments, I don't know.
All right, on that resonant note, Ian Hislop, thank you very much indeed for coming in.